As Kevin just said, my name is Brian, and if you would like to try to pronounce my last names, it is Bønk, but yeah, you get points for trying. I'm from Denmark. I'm the principal architect of data and AI, data and analytics in Fellowmind. I'm a fast-track recognized solution architect for Power BI and also certified trainer. And I have you can find my LinkedIn handles here and also my blog. The QR code is just giving you direct access to my LinkedIn page. A small comment here is that normally this session is presented by two people. My coworker Matthias, perhaps some of you know him, Matthias Halkær. He's also active on Twitter and in the community work. But fortunately for him, he's in the Maldives on vacation. So he would rather be there on this beach with these drinks than talking here. So perhaps you will meet him out there in the community. Today we're going to talk about Power BI and Synapse Analytics better together. We're here to talk about these two guys and how they work together. For those who doesn't know, the top icon is Power BI and the bottom is Synapse Analytics. And when we talk about this better together, then this is a session about leveraging Synapse Analytics within Power BI. I know a lot of you people, perhaps you are using Power BI end-to-end. That's fine. But I'm here to try to encourage you to try the Synapse Analytics part of what we're going to go through today. Let me talk a bit about Power BI. People who are on this session, I expect you have already perhaps tried Power BI and worked with data model, data sets, and reports. And you might not have looked at Synapse, or you are just curious about what's in it and want to know a bit more. This session is made for people who know Power BI, and so I want to start here. So let me dive right into how Power BI can be used as an end-to-end tool for analytics. And then after that, we'll go through the Synapse and see how they can work together. So I've brought a sketch. This is not written in stone, but I think you get the point. You have reports, you have a data model, and this model has sources ingested from Power BI. And Power BI is also making sure in the ingestion part that ingestion and orchestration is done adhering to your business needs. And finally, you can share your reports from the Power BI service within Azure. This is pretty straightforward for those of you who has already used Power BI. You can use Power BI to its extent, and this is the power of what the service does. You could say that that Power BI with the introduction of Power BI from Microsoft, they have brought democratization to everyone, at least for a front-end perspective. I know that if you're an enterprise, then Power BI might not be a democratization, but still Power BI has brought some extent of democratization of data in the organization. And this allows business users and end users and everything in between to make these things for themselves. They don't need to contact the IT department. They don't need a big change management process. They can just go ahead and use Power BI. This is more or less what a single Power BI report in the Power BI service does. So when talking about enterprise models, we would, of course, split the report from the dataset. If you don't know that, then the report and the dataset should be split inside Power BI. That is best practice from Microsoft. And you should also begin to work with approved dataset for corporate reporting. But it seems like from an enterprise perspective, there is some missing pieces in the enterprise setup. We're missing some sort of governance. We're missing some sort of data lineage. We're missing some sort of data modeling on a high-level scale. So back to this slide, we have some missing elements or pieces left out in this image, especially from the enterprise point of view. And if we expand this, then it could look something like this. A bit more steps in the process to serve the end product of sharing a report for everyone to use. Oh, I forgot. And I think also Kevin forgot, but if you have any questions, just please write them to me and I will take them during this talk. And also if you have questions for slides, just ping me and then we can take it as we go along. Okay, back to the slide. The copy, clean, and serve processes, and out of naming conventions, this is just examples. It could be everything else, but I like ingested, cleaned, and curated for the three areas. And it's up to you to decide your naming conventions. But for now, let's just keep it at copy, clean, and serve. From the serve area, you begin to model your data to be used in the front-end BI. But we have something here that is missing. We're missing a process to copy the data in a proper way. Yes, we can do it in the data set, but we have to mash down all operations in the process into one step inside Power Query. You can, of course, do all the steps in the service, but from my point of view, it's not easy when you need to do this in an enterprise context. Microsoft is doing a lot with these unfilled boxes and closing the gap between the sources and the models. Then for some time ago, we got the data flow. We got the Power BI data flow. This is more or less closing the gap in the serve area. We can now ingest data and store it in a serving layer in Power BI for all models to use. But I'm also in doubt here. Where should the data flow be placed? Is it on copy? Is it on clean? Is it on serve? But no matter where you place it, we can now have shared elements like dimensions as building blocks within the service. It does not solve all the problems in the process, and I can actually don't know where to place these three boxes, but it solves something, but not everything. Yeah. And then another possibility we got added to the service was that data sets can now connect to themselves, also named composite data models. And if you remember, this is, I think it is it the longest product name from Microsoft ever given? The correct name is, if I remember correctly, I think it's Direct Query for Azure Synapse Analytics Services and Power BI Datasets. Wow, one name, one long name, perhaps the longest name ever. But we got it. We got the possibility to have composite models with dataset pointing to themselves. We got a REST API for sharing data outside of Power BI. Prior to this, we could not share data to other departments unless they also had Power BI. But now with the REST API, we can call the API endpoint with execute query command, and then we can get the data out and use it in another front-end tool or another data warehouse for that matter. And then the latest addition to Power BI Stack is the Data Mart. The Data Mart is something limited to its functionality today. I hope to see more improvements on this soon. Like write to your own SQL server, adopt store procedures, custom views, normal DDL work. But for now, we are limited to that we need to use the UI within Power BI to build our data set inside the SQL server. But when we get the last things, I do believe that the product will really be a plus in the entire data universe within Power BI. And this also gave us another possibility besides the REST API that we could get data out of Power BI from a SQL Server endpoint. That is also a positive addition to the entire Power BI universe. So where to put Data Mart? Well, it's up to you, but yeah, you have to put it somewhere. And hopefully in the future, we'll get enough capabilities so that we can use the data marts and data flows as seen here. Then we can create layer on layers and keep adding value to the chain of data work in the entire enterprise. But we are not there yet, because so there's still a need for something to help us get from Power BI as a no-code, low-code solution to an enterprise setup within Power BI. And this is where Synapse comes to play. Even for a smaller company, I would argue that they need Synapse as a start, the serverless SQL with blob storage. But the limitations of Power BI today is the transformation layer is not accessible. You cannot see the steps going on behind the scenes, and it can be hard to troubleshoot. I know there are hacks where you can use incremental data refresh, but if encountering an error, you are stuck with the restart of your history because you cannot download your Power BI model because it is broken. Staging is unmaterialized, and you don't have no historic data. So if your report goes haywire, then restart, reboot. You have no logs. You have no output from staging. You can only get an okay or not okay from the Power BI service. And if you need quality checks or alerts based on data, that is not happening unless you're doing it inside Power BI metrics. And then you have to have the data ready and processed before Power BI can show you what is wrong or what has gone wrong. But if things go wrong before that, then you can only get a not okay. And then the last thing here, Power BI is really, really bad at handling huge amount of data. Not big data. We're not talking big data. We're just talking huge amounts of data, terabytes of data. That is Power BI. Power BI is not yet capable of handling that. But if we then talk about a marriage between Power BI and Synapse Analytics, then we get a whole superset of features we can rely on. We can do time travel. With Synapse, you can leverage the use of time travel and change tracking. You can store every version of data in your blob storage, and from there build your historical data usage. For example, like all the slowly changing dimension types. As long as you have the historical data stored in your blob, you can build type 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, and so forth. And if things go wrong inside Power BI, you still have all your data to rebuild your data warehouse, and it costs a fraction of money because blob storage is perhaps the cheapest storage you can get inside Azure. You can now work with huge amounts of data at massive scale. The scale is almost well, I would like to say it is unlimited. You can just go ahead and store your data, and Synapse will be capable of handling that. You also get machine learning out of the box. Machine learning out of the box capabilities where you can do machine learning algorithms, deep learning, and yes, I know we now have OpenAI, but yeah, you can still do machine learning inside Azure Synapse Analytics. And you have support for multiple languages. You can both do programming in SQL or Python or C# or Scala if you're confident in that. So you can use the coding language that you are best home in and where you are best performing without the need of learning a new language. People coming from the old SQL world is very, very fond of Synapse Analytics because they can adhere to the SQL language inside Synapse Analytics. And then we have CI/CD and version control inside Synapse Analytics. It hooks directly up to your version control, and you can do build and releases directly from Azure Synapse. So what is Synapse?
So hang on, Brian.
Sure.
So
sure, what?
FQR here says he understands that there's a limited data lineage, and what about observability?
The data lineage, yes, the data lineage is not as beautiful in Synapse as it is in Power BI. In Power BI, I can right click and I can get my lineage from the data. In Synapse, it is more enterprise. You need to take care of your lineage yourself, or you can add Microsoft Purview to the equation, and then you get lineage out of the box. And what do you mean about observability? I'm unsure about that word. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait until he responds on that one. If you want to continue on, you're good to go. I think that at least started the question off.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you. Sure.
Mhm.
So if QR, if you can put up more words on the observability, then I'll happy to answer. So yeah. Okay, great. So Synapse Analytics, what is it? And some people do not fully understand what Synapse is, and some people think that it's a tool. Well, actually, Synapse is a toolbox with a bunch of tools, and let's go through it. You get a data lake that is out of the box. You get a data lake when you provision your Synapse Analytics service. You also get out of the box a serverless SQL pool. I'll get back to that later. If you want, you can buy in a dedicated SQL pool, so you get dedicated capacity for calculations and storage. You can start the Databricks. You get mapping data flows. You also get pipelines, as we know from the two last ones here that we know from Data Factory. Synapse Link, all the Synapse Link services are also working within the toolbox, of course, and many more things. Not that I will go through everything here, but just to show you that you are not limited in services or in the toolbox inside Synapse Analytics. You get a Swiss knife of tools that you can use to your needs. Yeah. And what about pricing? If I start the calculator inside Azure, then I'll get a price around roughly $18,000 a month. This keeps a lot of people away from trying Synapse. But you also need to know that there's a bit confusion inside Azure, the Azure calculator, because they enable everything, and they have a default setting that everything is running all the time, 24/7. And then, yes, of course, you get to pay for what you use. But you don't have to run away because the calculator is giving you everything. So that is not correct. $18,000 a month is not correct. In Synapse, you can actually start for $0 a month. If you spin up the service and don't move data, then it's $0. If you move data through the serverless SQL endpoint, you can do that for $5 per terabyte. You are then a minimum calculated transfer is 10 megabytes, and that is around 5 cents or something, less than that. And the data lake, you can store data in your data lake for a fraction of $1 per gigabyte, and the dedicated pool start at around $1,000 a month. Perhaps those prices have changed in the last 2 days. I don't know. But you can get started pretty low priced compared to the $18,000 a month. And all these pricing are based on consumption, not on compute. So what you use of data volumes through the service is what you pay for. It can be complex to figure out how much it will cost. And just to give you examples, I have clients inside my consultancy firm that has a full-scale running data warehouse for $250 a month. So that is doable. Yes, of course, you can also get up to $18,000 a month, but you can start very low. And when you start to estimate what the pricing is, you need to start working on some sort of POC to figure out what does this data transfer cost. I'll get back to the data money later. Yeah, and a good suggestion here is to, inside your Azure subscription, set up a budget and set up a cost reporting, so you get alerts on if the budget is 75% used. Then you get a mail, and then you can take an action. Coming off to the last couple of slides, then we'll go through a demo. So a Synapse Analytics end-to-end, if I were to use Synapse in only without Power BI, I could actually do that. I could build something like this. This is not set in stone, and we need to adhere to Microsoft. They have a lot of best practices and reference architectures. But in my copy clean surf area, I can use my pipelines and my dedicated pool or my serverless SQL pool. And I can also use Databricks to handle all my data modeling. My storage is either blob storage or dedicated pool. And the integration and orchestration is within the pipelines, the Azure pipelines. And the reporting, I can actually do reporting within Synapse. I'll show you that in a minute. And then the sharing, yeah, well, you can send data out because you have a shared SQL pool, or you can start building reports directly on top of Azure Synapse. So, demo time. Let me stop sharing here, and then I'll start sharing my screen. No, it's the same screen. Sorry. I have a lot of screens here, so just bear with me. There you go. And I need to choose the bottom one. There, this one. Wait, there you go. So here I'm inside Azure on a demo account, Bønk's Playground. That's me. I have already spun up a Synapse workspace. Within this Synapse workspace, I can then start open Synapse Studio. Just takes a second to load. This is the main entrance for everything you need to do inside Synapse. I can click here and start ingesting data. I can explore and get insights from what data is in my Synapse workspace, and I can start building reports directly. Just to show you that the data oh, I'm not sharing. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. That's funny. Sorry. It must be this one. It's okay now? Anyone? Just reaction?
Yep, everything's showing.
Okay, thanks. Okay, let me go back. Thank you. There you go. Here I'm in chat Synapse. I have already spun up a Synapse workspace. If I click this, then I can open my Synapse Studio here. I did that, and then now I'm here. This is my main entrance to Azure Synapse Analytics. If I click this button, I can ingest data directly within just in a pipeline way, as you know it from Azure Data Factory. I can explore and analyze my data directly, what I've already ingested into the Synapse workspace, and I can build reports directly in Power BI from this button here. But just to walk you through slowly what I can do inside Synapse, in my linked button here, I'm exposed to the out of the box blob storage that I am given, and then I can browse through, and then it hangs. Great. I can browse through my folders inside my blob storage to see what is there now. Why is this hanging? Let me just go back. No. Great. Refresh. The demo ghost has come, as always. There you go. Now I'm just browsing my blob storage, and I can see my folders. And if I didn't go down to my folders, I can see my files here. Around file types, if you don't know Parquet files, it is a good idea for you, all of you, to just read up on what is a Parquet file. I think it is more or less the new standard for data warehousing on a blob storage and Synapse inside the Microsoft Azure world. I think it is more or less the new standard for files. So do that. Yeah, this is data. I'll show you this later. I've also hooked up a SQL database. I'll show you how later. And in this database, I can actually see all my things that I have here. But let me go through the integration part, because here we get stuff running. In the integration part is more or less just that data factory. I can create a new pipeline. Let me just clear up some white space here. And the pipeline is drag and drop, as you know from Data Factory. I can copy data. The copy data area is more or less what we do inside Synapse. We move data out from the source system and store it inside the blob storage, and then we can start working with it. I need to set up a source. The source data set, I've already done that, but if I need to do it, I can click New. Then here I can select from a long list of sources that is built inside Synapse Analytics. I can choose them if I have all of these sources. But for now, let me choose a SQL Server. Where is it? There, SQL Server. Continue. And then I need to create a link service and so forth. And the link service here, I need to add the server name of my database. It could be SQL.windows, .net. Then I have this is my address inside Azure, and then I have the database name, the authentication type, and my username and password. And this password can also be stored inside an Azure Key Vault. So I as a developer don't know it, but I can still use it. Let me discard this because I already have done it. Cancel. So here I will now choose my Azure SQL. My Azure SQL. Okay, got it. My Azure SQL database is, I've just imported the demo database that is provided from Microsoft, the AdventureWorks database, and I have parameterized my connection to call for a schema name and a table name. I'm doing this on the connection. This is what I've done, my connection, and over here on the parameters, on the parameters, I've defined schema name and table name as a string, and just added a default value, because then I have that. And then these parameters are then exposed when I choose my source, and then I can select or write my schema and my table name. Or if I would like it, I can just write a query. Select star from sales LT dot product. This will be the same. And I know, yes, I know select star is not a good best practice, but this was just for the demo of it. I can also execute a store procedure, but for now, let's just do the table. Of course, I need to sync it somewhere. This is the destination. In the same way, I can create a destination. I can store it wherever I want, but if I would like to keep it inside Synapse Analytics, I would, of course, like to store it in my data lake. So this is my data lake, and in the same way, in the data lake, I have two parameters. I have a folder name and I have a file name. These can also be dynamic created, but for the demo of it, I've just written in sales LC, and then I'm saving this to a product.parquet file, and the folder name is sales LC. And for you to know what I'm talking about, let me just switch here, show you this one. This is my blob storage that I get out of the box. This is the same folders that you just saw inside Synapse. And this is the folder AdventureWorks to where my destination is pointing. And then I'm pointing to a folder called product and to a file called product.parquet. If these files or folders are not there, Synapse will create them for you when you execute your pipeline. A small comment here is I would, of course, if this were a real scenario, I would do a parameterization of everything also inside my file path to my data lake and also to my database and so forth. So I only have to create this once, and then I can reuse it just with new parameters inside my entire enterprise. If I delete this, I can show you something that is working. It is here. Here I have 3 copy activities. I have copy product category, and product model. My source is what you saw, just sales LT and then product model. And my sink is a folder called product model, and the file name is product model.pk, just as we saw it over here. So for demo, I will just delete this. Delete. There you go. And then I can debug this. Now Synapse is starting to cost money, but not that much because this is based on the same calculation on cost as you have inside Data Factory. When I hit debug, I'm also exposed to details of what is happening. You can see here it is starting to emerge. It is already done. So data has been moved. I have different options to see what has happened here. I can see what is the input. It's an Azure SQL data source. It has a query time of 2 minutes and all these different types of things. And if I click this, I can actually now see what has this specific activity, what has this consumed of resources inside Azure. I can see it took 5 seconds in a queue, and the data transfer took 4 seconds. Then I have read around 2 megabytes, 41 rows, and I have written just around 3 megabytes. Still, of course, 41 rows. The reason that this data is smaller is because that the Parquet files is also compressed. So now I have read data from my Azure SQL database and stored it inside my Azure Data Lake. And if you would like to know what this has cost, then you can go to the Azure calculator and type in these numbers, and then you'll get a feeling of what has this cost. And my gut feeling is that this has perhaps cost a few cents to move this data. So now data is moved, and if we go back to my storage account and refresh this, I can see I have then recreated my folders and my files, product.pk. So now my data is ingested inside Azure Synapse, and now I can start to develop my SQL scripts. My SQL scripts is this I have done beforehand, but you don't need to know what to write here because some people might be confused on, what is this? I don't know how to do it. Well, you don't, because inside your data, linked, then we go to AdventureWorks, double click on product, right click, new SQL script, select sub 100. Then I'm getting this. Then it's just a matter of replacing this one, the star, and then here create or alter view. What was the AdventureWorks LC dot, this is the product. Oops, sorry. It almost works. There you go. Then of course I have to use my right database. A side note here, I forgot to show you. In a setup I've created just as a normal, if I would create a database inside a SQL server, I can execute a query to create a new database. And then I've also created a schema called AdventureWorks LC. That is why I can choose the database over here. If I were to create another one, create database cloud, run, just takes a second. Then over here, if I refresh this one, then I now have a cloud database also. Easy peasy to create a new database. It doesn't cost me anything because I haven't stored anything in it. It is just a matter of metadata engine. And if I need to create users, I can do that on normal T-SQL level. Users, access, roles, security, and all those stuff I can do inside these scripts. But now I can start to create my views that exposes the data through the SQL Server endpoint as a normal object, as a normal SQL Server object, but it still reads my data from my Parquet files down on my data lake. This is where the transfer pricing of a minimum of 10 megabytes is done. And to show you, I have my Azure Data Studio right here. It is there. This is Azure Data Studio. I'm connected to my SQL server. This is not the right one, sorry. Let me just go back. In Azure, you get two SQL Server addresses, and the dedicated SQL endpoint is not default enabled. The default enabled is the serverless SQL endpoint. If I copy this, then I can connect to it. There. This server. And then I need to choose my correct authentication. Then I can connect to it. Now I'm connected to it, and if I open this up, I can see my AdventureWorks database, and I can also see my cloud database that I just created. For the demo purposes, I already created all my views. Here I have my view called AdventureWorks LT.product. I have my view for product category, and I also have my view for, oh, that's gone, but it is here. Here I have a product and select top 100. Then I get data from my product stored in a Parquet file, read directly out through my SQL Server endpoint, but read from my storage account, my blob storage. This is the data, and if I need to know how much data have I actually read, I can see it here. It has read, it has moved 2 megabytes there, but I can also see it inside Azure, inside Synapse. If I go to monitor in my SQL requests, I can see I've done this select statement. It has processed exactly 10 megabytes, but I don't know that because this is what I'm built. I'm built for 10 megabytes, but I only moved 2. So you have to take care that you don't do 100 or 1,000 select statement for small data sets. Do it on larger data set if you can, unless you will be here. You have an overhead of 8 megabytes that you pay for, but you don't get anything out of. So just a side note there. When all of this is done and my models has been moved and my views has been done inside my SQL scripts, then I can start to build my Power BI reports. This is where the marriage comes in. If you saw here, I can visualize and I can add a Power BI workspace. I've already added a workspace, so I cannot show you again, but it's a matter of here in the Power BI workspace, you have a drop down, then you can choose the Power BI tenant that you are added on. And then, of course, you select your workspace that you need to work on. I already did that. And in the develop, then I'm exposed to a, oh, there's a question there. I didn't see that. Sorry. Let me just see it. Where is it? There. How is 2 megabyte if it is just 1,000 rows? Is 2 megabyte the size of the whole table Synapse read? Oh, good question. Let me just show you that. If we go back to the, what was the query? It was the product query. There. Let me go back here. Product.parquet is, it is compressed to, yeah, 200 kilobytes. but when it is read, it is decompressed, and then the 1,000 rows is actually 2 megabytes, because it moved 2 megabytes through this. The total size of data moved is 2 megabytes. So yes, these 1,000 rows was 2 megabytes. Was that enough question? Great, Jeremy, thanks. Also one from Thomas, there might be some sandbox playground allowing you to learn about it. Microsoft Learn for the topic. Maybe not really. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, great comment, Thomas. That you can also find this on Microsoft Learn, of course. Sure thing, Thomas. No worries. So yeah, back to this. When I've added the Power BI workspace, I can now browse through my Power BI workspace directly inside Azure Synapse. I already have a report, but if I click here, let me just close all of this so we don't need it. Inside Power BI, I'm exposed to my reports and then what data sets they are built on. This is my report. Let me just show you what I've published. I can show you here, app.powerbi.com. This is my workspace, my demo workspace. Here I have my adventure works. I have my data set, and I have my report. This is the report I've built. Yes, I've only used around 10 cents on design. This is just for demo purposes. I have a line total, companies, products, and then I have company name and some line totals. This I'm also seeing inside Synapse now. This is beautiful. So if I need to change this, let's say I need to have this needs to be green or something like that. Columns and the colors, they need to be red. And then I save it. And if I go over here and then I refresh, now it's red. So directly inside Azure Synapse, I can now alter my reports. I can also create new ones. I cannot create new datasets. I'm sorry, because if I click this, I'm just guided to install Power BI Desktop and then from there create my new dataset. Perhaps that will change in the future, but if I click start, I will just be guided to open Power BI Desktop. So that is yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. So and I can also alter stuff. I can add. You just see if I need to do this, and then I can do product, and then I can do whatever color or something black, and then I save it. Refresh this. Then it is instantly changing my report inside Power BI directly from Azure Synapse. So now we have the marriage between Power BI and Synapse. I can move my data in Synapse Analytics. I can model it inside my views, and I can expose it through a SQL Server endpoint. And then inside Power BI, I can build my data model, and I can build my reports. Any questions on this, or else I'll just go back to my slides.
Doesn't look to be any more questions, so go with the slides.
I'll have slides here. Oh, isn't that right? I need to swap. There you go. So this is what I've just shown you. We have the sources. I can copy my data through my pipelines. I can save my data to the blob storage. And oh, my mouse is killing me here. Sorry, just hang on. My other screen is killing me. So just sorry for that. I need to restart. Sorry. Don't do 2 screens and demo in the same time. That's just a side note to everyone. There you go. So now I'm back. Sorry, yeah. This is what I showed you. You store your data in the blob storage. You then do views on your serverless SQL pool to expose the data through a serverless SQL endpoint, and then you use Power BI to connect to that endpoint and then build the reports. This is not the best practice architecture. This is taken from Microsoft technical pages, where you can see that Azure Synapse Analytics, I've tried to highlight it here in dark gray, is where you do both your ingest, your store, and your process, and then you can add cognitive services, stream analytics, so forth, and then you can expose it through Power BI. This is Power BI Premium, but also, of course, Pro, and then the business users to the far right of the corner. This is what I had today. My name is still Brian. If you need to hook up, then please do it on LinkedIn, or my blog is also there. And if you have any questions, just please let me know now.